I can't find it, the legendary work, the work of work, The Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James, brother who was hideously murdered for writing the truth. And so since this brother was murdered for writing the truth, it's the least that we can do is pick up the book that this brother laboriously put together for us to read and to tell us about, and to know in certain terms that not only the Greeks but the Romans, all of Western civilization has lied to black people, because anytime someone takes something from you and does not declare in fact that he's borrowed it from you, then in fact that becomes theft. And so he appropriately titled this book Stolen Legacy. And of course we can't forget the master who recently passed in the last 4 years, I suppose, but Sheikh Anta Diop, whose book, the legendary book, Sheikh Anta Diop. All these brothers deserve a round of applause. And Civilization and Barbarism is a very important book. In fact, this book is very much in line with some of the information that I'll be sharing with you this evening. So I just wanted to cover a few of those things, and also a fairly decent book. In fact, it's the only book that I can see is really dedicated totally to Imhotep. It's by a European or of descent, Jameson Hurry, a book that's on Imhotep. So I recommend that you do read this book, because it does highlight the life of Imhotep and some very important things that you should know about this brother, which we will be sharing with you today. So now back to the article. Well, just to sum it up, I'm not going to read the whole article, I'll just sum it up. What they're saying in this archaeology magazine is that this concept of Afrocentricity is nothing more than the emotional position of black people with some wild-eyed expectations about the past, and that for some reason black people can't submit their passion to reason. And that this whole concept of Afrocentricity is nothing more than emotionalism, and that black people are trying to latch on to a history that does not belong to them. That's the position that they have taken in these particular articles. And so, I take exception to that. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you categorically, in certain terms, that not only is ancient Kemet or Egypt an African civilization, but that the very essence of architecture that led to the development of high-rise architecture such as skyscrapers, it all had its origins and evolution along the Nile Valley amongst the indigenous people, the indigenous Africans, who are commonly called the ancient Egyptians. And so one of the things that we'll be pointing out in this lecture is mathematics. We'll be showing you how mathematics developed naturally along the banks of the Nile River, and it is Africa itself, its geological, topographical, and geographical aspects of Africa that are responsible for the origin and evolution of what we call geometry today. Geometry literally means earth measurement. And it was along the banks of the Nile, as a process of inundations and subsiding of inundations, that they began to measure the land, to measure the earth, the first concept of earth measurement, which we call geometry today. We also will be speaking about the Greeks and Romans and how they learned these things from Egyptian masters, and we'll see the oral accounts given by the Greeks themselves, who said they learned from the ancient Egyptians there in Africa. Also, we'll be dealing with the oral tradition of the Greeks, as well as the extensive archaeological information that comes down to us by way of the ruins of structures that go all the way back to the very earliest European high culture, which is the island of Crete and the Mycenaean civilization just off the coast of ancient Greece, so-called ancient Greece. And so without any further ado, we'll have the lights, and we'll get into this very important topic, Imhotep and the African origin of Western architecture. Okay, this first slide is a sculpture of the god, which we call, or Neter, which we call correctly Ptah. Ptah is said to be the great architect of the universe. He is the one who uttered and brought forth the creation. He is considered to be the great mind. And Ptah, as the creation, the Memphite theology story tells the story of Ptah. Ptah rose up in the form of a primeval hill and uttered, and from the core of his inside, uttered forth life. He called forth Atom, fire, and fire emerged, and from fire all life was created. Now, it's interesting because in the later dynastic period of Kemet, of course we know there's approximately 30 dynasties in Kemet. When I say Kemet, I want everyone to impress in their minds that Kemet is synonymous with Egypt. Kemet is a term that the ancient Egyptians, one of the terms that the ancient Egyptians called their land, Kemet. They also called their land Ta-Meri. Ta-Meri means the birth land, the born land. Kemet means black land. Kemet-Ta is black land. Kemet-Nu is black nation. And Kemetu is what they call themselves, the black people. So we use the indigenous names whenever we can, because one of the things the Europeans have always done was to come in and change names. And this is why the X is there for Malcolm X, because X represents the ex-slave. He's no longer going with the white man's name. He's getting rid of it, and this is his X. And so he receives his X until the Honorable Elijah Muhammad or God names him. That's what the Muslim does. He receives his X. You hear 1X and 2X, brother so-and-so 3X, brother X. X just simply means ex-slave, no more slave. So we're no longer slaves here, so we're going to use the Kemetic names wherever, indigenous names whenever possible. You think that's what we ought to do? Right. And this is like a church, you know, so you can, anytime you want to respond, amen, you know, it's okay, you know. All right? So here's Ptah. And so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in terms of the religion. We will be doing the Egyptian temple mother of the Christian church December 27th for the Long Beach Study Group. And you can get information from the brother on the camera afterwards about that. And in that lecture, we go into religion, and we analyze the Bible, we analyze the book of Revelation, and we show how a lot of this information was taken directly out of the ancient Egyptian text, particularly the book of Coming Forth by Day and by Night, which they call the Book of the Dead. But we won't get too much into that tonight because we want to deal with the structure. So Ptah is considered the architect of the universe. And so in the later dynasties, Imhotep was called the son of Ptah. This brother was a multi-genius. He's the first brother to come down to us in history and recorded history as a multi-genius. You heard about Michelangelo and Bernini, and you heard about Alberti. You heard about all those European so-called geniuses, but never did you hear about African genius. No one talks about the African genius, especially the first genius in recorded history, which is this brother, the ancient sage Imhotep. And you can see by his nose and his mouth, he doesn't look like Charleston Heston or Yul Brynner. He's no offspring of Elizabeth Taylor. Looking at his nose and lips, you can see that he looks just like your uncle. Looks like anybody you see here sitting in the room. Clearly showing you Imhotep is clearly an African. And this brother was the grand vizier, a vizier, under the pharaoh Zoser in the third dynastic period in Egypt, which is approximately 3,000 years BCE. Nearly 5,000 years ago, this brother walked on the face of the earth and was recorded as being a genius. This brother designed the first monumental stone structure known to man, the step pyramid for King Zoser. Now you heard about the seven wonders of the world, the light tower of Alexandria, and you heard about the hanging tower of Babel and the Rhodes statue and all the other stuff. You can't find any of it. It's all gone. But yet, one of the wonders, the pyramids of Egypt, are still there. The only wonders of the world that you don't have to wonder about are still there in Kemet. And this brother designed the first one, and it's still there. You can walk right up and see it. 5,000-year-old monument sitting right there for you to come and see. So the brother was not only a great architect, as I say, he was a vizier, and that's just like being the vice president or being in the cabinet. He was next to the power. He was next to the pharaoh in power. This brother was an administrator in the kingdom of Kemet. The brother was a physician. That's right. The brother was not only an architect and a governor. He was a physician. And the brother moved from a physician to a demigod and became a god later on. They worshipped him as a god. The Greeks and Romans worshipped him as a god. They call him Asclepius. And even today, when the physicians swear to become a physician, they swear to this brother under the guise of Asclepius, Imhotep. So they need to have some doctors in here tonight. So Brother Imhotep was an astronomer. The brother struck the chord, the axes of his temples according to the stars in the heaven. Brother was recorded as being a royal astronomer. Brother Imhotep. All of our children should be raised with that brother's name on their lips. Imhotep. He who comes in peace. So this is Brother Imhotep here on the scene through Brother Lester O. Bankhead. Now, Lester O. Bankhead, a lot of you don't know about this brother, but this brother is a brother I worked with for 10 years. Sat at this brother's feet for 10 years. He was 66 years old when I met him. The brother is almost 90 years old and he's still practicing architecture. This brother knew Paul Williams and worked on several projects. In fact, in his office, I had the great fortune of working with him and a brother named George Williams, who teaches architecture at Cerritos College. I worked on one of Paul Williams' buildings. Of course, in case some of you don't know who Paul Williams is, that brother designed a number of homes for so-called stars such as Frank Sinatra. But probably the most important thing that you can recognize him for was the design of the restaurant at LAX with the arches down there. But nobody told you that Paul Williams worked on that building, did they?